Welcome on in, Cougar Tracks podcast, powered by KSLSports.com. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Typically, I do this in a drive. Tonight, it's at my house because, well, my wireless microphone that I clipped to my shirt died on me. So, no podcast recorded while driving, but still laying this down on a Friday after day 13 of BYU football fall camp to unpack my thoughts from what I observed at practice today as BYU inches closer to the conclusion of BYU football fall camp for the 2024 season. You can follow me on X at Mitch_Harper, Instagram as well at the same handle, then download the KSL Sports app. Follow KSL Sports on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Wherever you get your social media content, we are there at KSL Sports. So day 13 of BYU fall camp, I will say driving home while not talking to all of you was a little bit different. One, because there was so much traffic. Practice was a little bit earlier on Friday. It was originally going to be a media observation during the 11 a.m. hour. That got pushed back to around 4 p.m. We knew about that a day or so ago. After practice concluded, left, realized my wireless mic was dead, and so I was just on the drive, just kind of gathering my thoughts. It gave me the chance to listen to the Post Malone album in its entirety because, well, the traffic was just horrendous. Typically, I always think traffic is terrible heading southbound to Utah County. I never think of bad traffic going north, typically because when I'm leaving Provo for Murray or Salt Lake, it's usually late at night and never in the rush hour time. And so it was pretty busy, and it took a while to get home from Provo. But I digress. Day 13 of camp, I will say, the vibes, you could sense this is a team that's in the thick of the dog days of camp. Just the vibes, the kind of the feeling around practice, it felt like a tired football team. And BYU this week went up to the Heber Valley, to the lake, and had some time to spend some time as a team, come together, which I think that was valuable for this group, having that team bonding experience. But you could just tell watching practice today, this was a bit of a tired group, and it was a hot day, around 91 degrees, I calculated. And then obviously on the field, and it gets a little bit even hotter on the football field. Then you add the pads, and you're talking probably triple-digit temps for these players. So it's definitely a grind, but there still were some things of note to observe from fall camp practice day 13. Coming up tomorrow, BYU will have a Saturday scrimmage, another one. So that's another opportunity for the depth chart to be crystallized. There was no news on the quarterback situation. Jay Hill, Kelly Papinga, Caleb Etienne spoke to the media today, so no formal announcement on who QB1 will be. If there is an announcement, I would think it'll probably be Monday. I would think that's the next time BYU football is going to speak to the media, but we'll see. When we got to the practice fields on Friday, the team was in 7-on-7 portion of practice. We did see LJ Martin for the first time in 7-on-7, and he also got some team 11-on-11 snaps too. And LJ, there was that clip of him earlier this week on social media. There was no contact to him. Now, he's not in a green jersey, but there was no one zeroing in on LJ. But again, the fact that he's taking snaps, I think that's a positive development for BYU. I believe it'll be interesting to see as he continues to work his way back from the shoulder how many snaps he actually gets against Southern Illinois. I think that's going to be something of note because you need LJ. You need him to get a healthy share of snaps to get ready for that SMU game. Now, is it critical for this BYU team to play him to win against Southern Illinois? No, not necessarily. I think you can get by with Falau Ropati or Miles Davis, who both continue to show well, but LJ's the guy. He's the star, and it was good to see him back out on the practice fields once again. He did have a touchdown run in the team portion. Again, no one was knocking him, hitting him, but he was running through the pile and for a score. 7-on-7 portion of practice. Jake Retzlaff had a quick strike to Parker Kingston. Also saw Marcus McKenzie back out on the practice field. I had not seen him last week and earlier this week on Monday. Good to see Marcus McKenzie once again. He's another cornerback in a busy room that needs to identify numbers 3, 4, and 5 in that cornerback unit. Again, I believe that Jacob Robinson and Mark Collins are the top two guys. Mark Collins, because of his knowledge of this defense, and yes, at times it feels like, you wonder about the ACL, him working his way back, but still, to me, I look at Mark Collins as that number 2 guy, and then Maury Bamba's number 3. And then number 4, I would go tentatively with Trey Alexander, the freshman, and then you kind of round it out from there. Evan Johnson's really had a nice camp, too. He's been earning some rave reviews, even dating back to the tail end of spring football. Shmev, as the team calls him, he's been doing a nice job, too. Trayson Bourget, we saw him in 7-on-7. There were a few passes that just not great for Trayson, a low ball, and you don't want to see that. 7-on-7 work, you want the quarterbacks to be absolutely flawless, perfection throwing the football, and Bourget struggled at times. Jaden Dunlap was competing a little bit, another cornerback who I mentioned. He was competing in 7-on-7 work. No green jersey for Jaden Dunlap, so that's something to monitor there. Mark Collins, I brought up him. He had a nice coverage play against JoJo Phillips during the 7-on-7 portion. But again, it was just kind of low energy all around in practice. It was not high intensity. I don't even recall hearing music, to be honest. It kind of just felt quiet and, again, dog days of camp to where you're thinking, this team's probably ready to move on and get ready for the opponent and start focusing on someone else. It's time. They moved from the west side of the field over to the east side for the team portions, and we didn't see much today. It was very light in terms of media observation. It wasn't as robust as last Thursday. It was not as intense as that, but there were still some things to take away. Jake Retzlaff completed a nice pass under pressure to Keanu Hill for a touchdown in the team portion. I thought that was noteworthy. Now, the defender, I don't recall who that was. I had a bad angle at it. I was kind of getting blocked a little bit. Retzlaff was facing pressure, and I know it's tough to completely evaluate because he's not going to get hit, but the defender was coming full speed at him, and he stopped in his tracks. So still, the element of having to throw a ball in a tight window, Retzlaff gets it there to Keanu Hill, and it appeared that Jake Retzlaff was with the first-team offense, but he made that nice ball to Keanu Hill, which was highlight play, I thought, from the team portion. Bohannon appeared to be with the second-team offense. He took a few snaps under center. Saw a lot of work for Sione Aimoa, who continues to get snaps in replace of the banged-up Enoch Nawahine. Tommy Parasis, a safety, he had an interception off a tip pass. It was not Gary Bohannon's fault. The ball was intended for the receiver. The receiver bobbled it, tipped up, and Tommy Parasis comes up with the interception. So another noteworthy play for the freshman who's earned some high praise and reviews during fall camp. A very intense football player. Parasis, I feel pretty good that he's going to be in the 2 deep at a minimum. Will he be the starter? We'll see, but I think he's made a compelling case to be in the mix in week 1. Austin Leausa appeared to be with the second-team offensive line. Again, I'm giving the edge a little bit to Sonny Mocassini at that right guard spot, but both of those guys are battling to be that 5th offensive lineman. And then Gary Bohannon had a quarterback keeper on an RPO, ran in for a touchdown, and that was about it from practice on Friday. Again, pretty light, not too much. It was about 20 minutes on the dot of observation, and wasn't a very in-depth, high-intensity practice. The Cougars will go scrimmage on Saturday, and fall camp will conclude coming up on Wednesday. So we're nearing the end of fall camp and 2 weeks away now till BYU kicks off the 2024 season against the Southern Illinois Salukis, number 11 Southern Illinois in the FCS Top 25 poll. And you can listen to that game, 6 o'clock kick on KSL News Radio. It'll also air on Big 12 Now on ESPN+. We'll have radio coverage kicking off on game day, beginning at high noon with Cougar Sports Saturday. Myself, Matt Baiamonte, we will have you covered with BYU football talk on game days this BYU football season. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Cougar Tracks podcast. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Cougar Sports Saturday, again, noon to 3 on KSL News Radio. So tune into that for more conversation from fall camp, BYU basketball talk, and a whole lot more. So talk to you then here on the Cougar Tracks podcast, and it's powered by KSLSports.com.